What is up, you guys? Welcome to another Tuesday with Spencer here on FTM Transtastic. This week we're discussing being trans and getting a job or working in a job as a trans individual, etc. And I'm going to give you two stories about a little bit about my experience. So, as you guys know, I worked as a technician at a vet hospital as well as an EMT at Grady Memorial Hospital. One of those jobs I transitioned in, and the other job I came in 7-ish. No, a year. I came in a year on T. So I'm telling you a little bit about these experiences because they're both drastically different and give you a little tips on what you can do in whatever stage of transition you are when it comes to securing or continuing to work at your job. So the first job, my veterinary technician job, I started working there in April 2015. I don't know. I started working there before I transitioned. And it was a very, very hard thing. It was a struggle working there and then coming out as trans because I had a very negative experience with that. So a lot of it probably had to do with I probably did things a little wrong, but I wasn't told how to do these things, and there was no HR department to consult. So I was just kind of going with what I thought was right. Then in March, I came out as transgender. I did it with a cake. So I brought a cake in, and it was a gender reveal cake, and it was green to recognize non-binary. However, at both my EMT and my vet job, I go by he/him pronouns just because that is a fight that I don't have the energy for. I'm just not trying to do. So went in as he/him pronouns, and Spencer with this cake, and everybody was shocked, which I thought was funny, and then they were just fine. They were accepting of it. The place that I work at, the hospital has 3 locations, and the owners and the head office manager are at a location that I've never worked at and don't ever visit. So they were out of the loop. However, my office manager and everybody that I work with at Brookhaven were in the loop. So I thought that's all I had to do, and I honestly thought that like the office manager would just tell everyone, and that's what would happen. And that is what happened. I told everyone at my job, everyone was fine with it. The office manager went to tell the head office manager and the owner, and they just weren't okay with it. So what happened was I had to have a meeting like a week after I came out with everybody, and they were like, all right, we'll accept it if we have like documentation. And I was like, cool. So I got my testosterone, I made a copy of my testosterone prescription, and then I got a letter from my doctor stating that I was transgender, that I was going by he/him pronouns, and Spencer. Again, I didn't want to go through the whole debate of they/them pronouns. So he/him pronouns and Spencer, and that I was on hormone replacement therapy. So when I sent that in, they were like, okay, that's not quite what we wanted. We wanted to know what testosterone would do to you and how it would affect your work. And to me, that sounds like a pretty reasonable statement, because if you're on any type of medication, it's reasonable to want to know if this is going to negatively affect your work, or if there's any type of accommodations that need to be had because you're on that medication. So again, I asked my doctor, they sent over a letter stating what T does to the body and that it shouldn't affect my job. After they got that, I had another meeting with them, and at the end of the meeting, they were like, yeah, you can't go by Spencer or he/him pronouns until it's legal, and if you do, you're impersonating a person. Oh, and then they said also they didn't want it to happen because I don't look male, and they didn't want to confuse their clients. So anyways, that happened. I was really pissed off about it. The office manager that used to work with us left, and we got our current office manager who, once she came in and heard the situation, put an end to it. She told me and everybody else that it is illegal for you to not call me Spencer. It is illegal for you to not respect my gender in the state of Georgia. And once the owners heard that, and I guess she provided factual documentation, it was fine. Everything was fine. They were like, everyone calls Spencer Spencer and he/him pronouns. It was fine. So I guess my advice to you would be know your rights in your state, and talk to the person with the most power, or HR. If you have an HR department, that's even better, but I didn't have that. So talk to the person in power and know the rights of your state. I would have saved myself a lot of heartache and a lot of issue and just being called an impersonator and everything else had I known that it was illegal for this to happen in the state of Georgia. And honestly, I just assumed it wasn't because we're at Fire at Will State and we're a red state, and I just was like, there's no way in hell. But I wish I did some research because then everything would have probably went on a lot quicker. But there was a lot of anxiety with it just because, for a solid 2.5 months, I thought I was going to get fired like every day. So I definitely understand the anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety when it comes to coming out at a job that you were at before or before you transition. So I would just suggest that you just get as much education on it as possible and then go from there. All right, so my second job, as you guys know, is I'm an EMT for Grady Memorial Hospital. I went into Grady EMS service training in May of 2015 and graduated as an advanced EMT in March. So I didn't apply to Grady Memorial Hospital until I was a year on T. And at that point, my name was changed and I looked very masculine, and there was really no problem. I had my resume all at Spencer Adams, and when I went in for the interview, everybody used he, him pronouns, and then I got the job. So what I did there was when I went to HR to turn in my paperwork for the job, which includes your driver's license or passport or whatever it is, it obviously has your gender. So I told them that I was a transgender individual and I would go by he, him pronouns, and they said that's cool, and that was it. Currently at my EMT job, unless you went to school with me, because I did start school when I was only 2 months on T, no one knows that I'm trans. No one knows that, yeah, no one knows I'm trans. I'm stealth at Grady. The only time that I've had it been an issue is when I worked in the hospital. When I'm on the truck, I have no gender limitations. I can assist anybody and everybody with whatever medical issue they have. However, when I'm in the hospital, there are gender limitations and restrictions for, if you're a person who's getting if you're a person who identifies as female and you're getting a breast exam, typically they'll have a female technician in there with you. And if you're a person identifying as male and you're getting a genital exam, typically they'll have a male um, tech in there with you. And I had to sign some documentation about that. So I'm obviously don't go in with people getting breast exams if they identify as female and such. So that was like the only thing. Other than that, I'm able to do whatever I please on the truck, and that's usually where I'm in mostly, so it doesn't matter. So my advice to you is if you're like going into a job and you're trans, is that even if you don't have all of your documentation changed, the only thing that has to be like legally have your name and legally have your gender marker is the paperwork they offer you when you get hired. So you can have your resume with your preferred name on it, and your resume doesn't have your gender on it. And then you can go in presenting however you present and using the pronouns, whatever pronouns you use, and that's fine. But the minute that they offer you the job, you have to say, okay, by the way, my gender marker isn't changed, or my name isn't changed, or whatever the case is. And they make accommodations that way. Now, that's definitely scary because if you don't believe that you pass and you want to go in as male pronouns, and then you're essentially outing yourself. And since you're at that part where you aren't offered a job, they can make whatever assumptions they want to, whether it's legal or not. It's really difficult, honestly. I think when you're trying to maneuver being pre-T or pre-transition and getting a job, just because you have all these hurdles to jump through, such as whether or not they're going to accept you and what their idea is on everything. But I also wouldn't say that it's easier for you to just go in pre-transition and then when you get the job, transition, because you have a lot of issues with that. I've had a lot of issues with that as well. So I would just say, present how you present, because at the end of the day, you don't want to get a job that you're not comfortable in, and you don't want to get a job that you have to feel like you have to hide yourself in. So present how you present, and then if you don't get the job, that job wasn't meant to make you comfortable anyway. And if you do get the job, then you know that you are going in as your true self, and there's not going to be any bumps in the road. So that is my 2 cents. I hope you guys are having a great week and are gearing up for an even better weekend. And say hi to Gracie. She's really cute. She's asleep. And yeah, it's Tuesday. It's Spencer. Until next time.